The Grand Conclave Station floated in the endless dark of space, circling a dying red star. It was the only place in the galaxy where all species could meet, without fear of war. Here, enemies became diplomats. Here, words replaced weapons. And here, Park Do-hyun was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. He was nobody important. Just a translator. One of 12 humans selected for Earth's first diplomatic mission to the galactic community. His job was simple. Stand in the back, stay quiet, and translate if anyone bothered to speak to the humans. Most species didn't. To them, humans were newcomers, primitives who had barely learned to leave their own planet. They were tolerated, not respected. Do-hyun didn't mind. He was happy just to be here, to see the wonders of the universe with his own eyes. The station's great hall was filled with beings he had only read about in reports. There were the tall, blue-skinned Morath with their 4 arms, the small, quick Fenari who moved like shadows, the massive Goran who looked like walking mountains. And then there were the Valorians. Everyone knew about the Valorians. They ruled the largest empire in known space. Their technology was centuries ahead of anyone else. Their warriors had never lost a war. But what made them truly terrifying was something else entirely. Valorians possessed psychic abilities that could crush the mind of any lesser being. Their very presence caused other species to feel fear, submission, and the desperate need to look away. It was said that looking directly at a Valorian royal was a death sentence. Their beauty was legendary, but that beauty was a trap. Those who gazed upon them without permission were executed on the spot. It was considered the highest insult, a challenge to their divine right to rule. The ceremony began with the usual speeches. Representatives from dozens of worlds spoke about peace, cooperation, and mutual benefit. Do-hyun listened politely, translating quietly into his recorder for the human archives. Then the Valorian delegation entered, and everything changed. The air itself seemed to grow heavy. Do-hyun felt a pressure in his chest, a whisper in his mind telling him to kneel, to bow, to close his eyes, and never open them again. Around him, members of other species did exactly that. Some fell to their knees, others turned away, trembling. The Fenari diplomat actually fainted. But Do-hyun felt something else too. Curiosity. He had always been different that way. When others felt fear, he felt the need to understand. When others ran away, he wanted to look closer. His grandmother had called it foolishness. His teachers had called it dangerous. But Do-hyun simply called it honest. So when Princess Yuna of the Valorian Empire walked into the hall, surrounded by her guards in their gleaming silver armor, Do-hyun did not look away. He looked directly at her. She was beautiful. That was his first thought. Her skin was pale silver, like moonlight given form. Her hair flowed, like liquid darkness, down her back. Her eyes were the most striking feature. They looked like shattered diamonds, reflecting light in 1,000 directions. She moved with the grace of flowing water, each step perfect and precise. But Do-hyun saw something else too. Behind the beauty, behind the power, he saw exhaustion. He saw loneliness. He saw a woman carrying a weight that no one else could see. Their eyes met across the crowded hall. Time stopped. Princess Yuna froze mid-step. Her guards immediately raised their weapons, sensing something wrong. The other delegates looked up in confusion, then horror, as they realized what was happening. A human, a primitive, worthless human, was staring directly at a Valorian princess. The hall fell completely silent. Yuna walked toward him, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. The crowd parted before her, like water before a ship. Do-hyun's fellow humans tried to pull him back, tried to make him bow, but he gently shook them off. He kept his eyes on hers. She stopped directly in front of him. Up close, her presence was overwhelming. The pressure in his mind increased tenfold. He should have been on the ground, begging for mercy. He should have been screaming in pain. He should have been dead. Instead, he smiled. "You dare look at me?" Her voice was cold, sharp, and filled with 1,000 years of authority. It was the voice of someone who had never been challenged, never been refused, never been seen as anything less than a goddess. Do-hyun's smile widened. It was not a mocking smile, or a brave smile. It was simply warm, genuine, and completely unexpected. "Only because you're beautiful," he said. The words hung in the air like something impossible. The guards looked at each other in confusion. The other delegates held their breath, waiting for the inevitable execution. Even the humans behind Do-hyun closed their eyes, unable to watch their colleague die. But Princess Yuna did not give the order. She stared at him, her diamond eyes searching his face for something. Mockery, madness, a death wish. She found none of these things. She found only honesty. Simple, pure, human honesty. For the first time in her 300 years of life, Yuna did not know what to do. She had faced armies, negotiated with emperors, and crushed rebellions with a thought, but she had never faced a man who simply smiled at her and called her beautiful. "You are either very brave or very stupid," she said finally. "My grandmother always said both," Do-hyun replied. Something flickered in her eyes. It might have been amusement. It might have been curiosity. Whatever it was, it saved his life. "This human is interesting," she announced to the hall. "I will study him. He belongs to me now." The head of Earth's delegation started to protest, but one look from Yuna silenced him. The guards moved forward to take Do-hyun by the arms. He went with them peacefully, still smiling. As they led him away, he looked back at his fellow humans. They stared at him with a mixture of horror, pity, and confusion. He gave them a small wave. "Don't worry," he called back. "I'll be fine." No one believed him. He had just been claimed as the personal property of the most dangerous woman in the galaxy. He had broken every protocol, every rule, every unspoken law of galactic society. He should have been terrified, but Park Do-hyun had seen something in those diamond eyes, something no one else could see, and he had a feeling that this was exactly where he was supposed to be. Behind him, Princess Yuna watched him go with an expression she did not understand. For the first time in centuries, she felt something other than power, duty, or cold calculation. She felt curious, and in a universe where she had seen everything, done everything, and conquered everything, that was the rarest treasure of all. The Silence of Stars was the largest personal starship Do-hyun had ever seen. It was twice the size of Earth's entire diplomatic fleet. Its halls were made of some kind of metal that seemed to glow from within, and every surface was carved with patterns that hurt his eyes if he looked at them too long. Valorian art, he decided, was not meant for human understanding. His room was comfortable, at least. It had a bed, a small bathroom, and a window that showed the endless stars outside. The door was locked, of course. He was a prisoner, even if they called him a guest. For 3 days, no one came to see him. Food appeared through a slot in the wall, strange foods in colors he had never seen. But they tasted fine. He spent his time watching the stars and thinking about home. He thought about his mother, who had cried when he left for the mission. He thought about his sister, who had called him an idiot. He thought about his grandmother, who had simply nodded and said, "Try not to die." Do-hyun. On the 4th day, the door opened. Princess Yuna stood in the doorway, alone. No guards, no servants, just her, in a simple silver dress that made her look almost normal, almost human. "You have not tried to escape," she said. "Where would I go?" Do-hyun gestured at the stars outside his window. "I don't know how to fly a spaceship. And even if I did, I don't know where Earth is from here." "Most prisoners at least try," she said. "They cry, they beg, they make promises they cannot keep. Would any of that work? No. Then, why waste the energy? He smiled at her. Would you like to sit down? The bed is quite comfortable. E.g. She stared at him for a long moment, then walked into the room. She did not sit on the bed. Instead, she stood by the window, looking out at the stars. My scientists have examined you, she said. They are confused. I tend to have that effect on people. Valorians possess what you might call psychic abilities. Our minds can touch other minds. We can sense emotions, detect lies, and when necessary cause great pain. She turned to look at him. When I first saw you in that hall, I used my full presence on you. Every being within 100 meters fell to their knees. Some lost consciousness. 2 nearly died. I remember, Do-hyun said. It felt like someone was pushing on my chest. That is all you felt? There was also a voice in my head telling me to bow, but it was very polite about it, so I decided to ignore it. Yuna's eyes narrowed. You should have been destroyed. Your mind should have shattered like glass. Instead, you smiled at me and called me beautiful. You are beautiful. Stop saying that. Why? It's true. She made a sound that might have been frustration or might have been confusion. In her 300 years, Yuna had never met anyone like this human. He was not strong. Her weakest guard could break him in half. He was not smart, at least. Not compared to Valorian scholars. He had no powers, no weapons, no resources. He was completely helpless, and yet he sat there, smiling at her like they were old friends having tea. My scientists believe your species is psychically deaf, she said. Too primitive to even register higher mental frequencies. Like trying to show colors to someone who cannot see. That's a bit insulting, Do-hyun said, but probably accurate. Humans have never had psychic powers. We have to do everything the hard way. Then how do you communicate? How do you know when someone is lying? How do you trust each other? Commoning Wan. We talk, we listen. We watch each other's faces and learn to read the small signs. And sometimes we trust. And we're wrong. And it hurts. He shrugged. But sometimes we trust and we're right, and that makes it worth it. Yuna shook her head. That sounds inefficient. It is, but it's also beautiful, in its own way. There's that word again. She walked closer to him, her diamond eyes searching his face. When you say, I am beautiful, what do you mean? It was a genuine question. Do-hyun realized that no one had ever explained beauty to her. In Valorian society, she was a goddess, a weapon, a symbol of power. People worshipped her appearance, but never truly saw it. I mean that looking at you makes me feel something, he said slowly, trying to find the right words. Not fear, though I understand why others feel that. When I look at you, I see someone who carries a heavy burden. I see someone who has never been allowed to be anything other than perfect. And I see someone who, despite all that, still has kindness in her eyes. Yuna stepped back, as if he had struck her. You see nothing, she said. You are a primitive creature with no understanding of what I am. Maybe. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the window, standing beside her but not too close. Or maybe I see exactly what you are, because I don't have any powers to confuse me. I can't sense your psychic field. I can't feel your authority pressing on my mind. All I can see is you. Just you. They stood in silence, watching the stars. This is a test, Yuna said finally. I am going to use my abilities on you directly, not my presence, which affects all minds nearby. I am going to reach into your mind specifically and try to break it. That sounds unpleasant. If you survive, I will have more questions for you. If you don't. She paused. If you don't, at least the mystery will be solved. Do-hyun turned to face her. Before you do that, can I ask you something? What? When was the last time someone talked to you like this? Like you were just a person, not a princess? The question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. She thought about her servants who obeyed without question, her guards who feared her family who saw her as a tool, her subjects who worshipped her. Never, she admitted. Do-hyun smiled his warm, genuine smile. Then, no matter what happens next, I'm glad I got to be the first. She struck at his mind with everything she had. It was like trying to grab smoke. Her power flowed around him, through him, past him, but found nothing to hold on to. His mind was not stronger than hers, it was simply different. It existed in a frequency she could not touch. It was like trying to crush water with her bare hands. When she withdrew, gasping from the effort, Do-hyun was still standing. Still. Smiling. That tickled, he said. Yuna stared at him. And for the first time in her long life, she felt something completely new. She felt wonder. This strange, small, powerless human was impossible, and impossible things had always fascinated her. You will stay, she said. It was not a question. Do I have a choice? No. She paused. But I am asking anyway. Do-hyun laughed. It was a warm sound, full of life. Then, yes. I'll stay. Someone has to teach you how to have a normal conversation. I do not need teaching from a human. Of course not. He was still smiling. But maybe you want it anyway. She left without another word. But as she walked back to her chambers, Yuna realized something strange. For the first time in years, she was looking forward to tomorrow. Because tomorrow, she would talk to him again. And that simple thought made her feel something she had forgotten existed. It made her feel happy. The Valorian homeworld was called Serenith, which meant first light in their ancient language. It was a planet of silver cities and crystal towers, where everything gleamed and nothing was imperfect. Do-hyun thought it was the loneliest place he had ever seen. Yuna had brought him here against the advice of everyone around her. Her generals said it was a security risk. Her advisors said it was politically foolish. Her servants simply looked at her with confusion, unable to understand why their princess would bring a pet human to the heart of the empire. But Yuna did not care what they thought. For the first time in her life, she had found something interesting, and she was not going to let it go. The scandal began the moment they arrived. Valorian society was built on rigid rules. Every person had their place, their role, their purpose. The idea of a princess keeping a human as a companion, not a servant, not a slave, but someone she actually talked to was unthinkable. It was like an eagle befriending a worm. It simply was not done. The gossip spread through the capital like wildfire. Do-hyun heard the whispers wherever he went. Most Valorians did not even try to hide their contempt. They looked at him with disgust, as if he was something dirty that had stained their perfect world. He ignored them all. He had dealt with worse back on Earth. At least these aliens were obvious about their hatred. Humans, he had learned, could smile while stabbing you in the back. The Emperor summoned Yuna on the third day. You will explain this disgrace, he said. The throne room was vast, larger than any building Do-hyun had ever seen on Earth. The Emperor sat on a throne of pure light, his presence filling the room like a weight upon the soul. Do-hyun had been allowed to attend only because Yuna had insisted. He stood far in the back, trying to be invisible. There is nothing to explain, Father, Yuna said. Her voice was calm, respectful, but firm. The human is a subject of scientific interest. His mind is immune to our abilities. Understanding why could advance our knowledge significantly. Then give him to the scientists and be done with it. I prefer to conduct this research personally. The Emperor's eyes, which were like solid gold, turned to look at Do-hyun. The pressure was immense, far stronger than anything Yuna had produced. Do-hyun felt his knees begin to shake, but he remained standing. It looked at me, the Emperor said. Just now. It raised its eyes and looked at me. He does that, Yuna said. It is part of what makes him interesting. It is an insult. I should kill it where it stands. With respect, father, you could try. Silence fell over the throne room. The advisors and nobles present could not believe what they had heard. A princess, challenging the emperor's authority? Over a human? The emperor stared at his daughter for a long moment. Then, slowly, he laughed. It was not a warm sound. You have always been strange, Yuna, he said. But do not let this foolishness distract you from your duties. The Keth are growing bold. War may come soon, and I will need my daughter ready. I am always ready, father. See that you remain so. Do-hyun released a breath he did not know he had been holding. He was alive. Against all odds, he was alive. That night, Yuna found him on a balcony overlooking the Silver City. He was staring at the stars. His face, thoughtful. You are quiet, she said. I'm thinking about your father. He frightens you? No. Well, yes, but that's not what I'm thinking about. He turned to face her. I'm thinking about how lonely he looked. Yuna blinked. The Emperor is the most powerful being in the galaxy. He has everything. The Reed. There has everything. Does he have anyone who tells him the truth? Anyone who challenges him? Anyone who sees him as a person, instead of a god? Of course not. He is the Emperor. Then he has nothing. Do-hyun looked back at the stars. Power without connection is just a fancy kind of prison. Yuna came to stand beside him. She had shed her formal robes and wore simple clothes now. In the starlight, she almost looked like any other woman. You see things strangely, she said. I see things honestly. There's a difference. Is there? My grandmother used to say that the truth is simple. Lies are complicated. He smiled. When I look at your father, I see a man who has forgotten what it feels like to be touched by someone who loves him. When I look at this city, I see millions of people who are afraid to speak freely. And when I look at you, what do you see when you look at me? Do-hyun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. I see someone who is very tired. I see someone who has spent centuries being what others need her to be. I see someone who has never been allowed to ask what she wants for herself. He met her. Diamond eyes. I see someone who is slowly disappearing behind her own mask. Yuna felt something in her chest, a tightness that she did not understand. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen her like this. I am a princess of the Valorian Empire, she said. I do not have the luxury of wanting things for myself. That's exactly what I mean. You don't understand our ways. Maybe not. He reached out and, very gently, touched her hand. It was the first time anyone had touched her without permission. In 200 years. She should have killed him for it. She did not pull away. But I understand loneliness, he said. And I understand masks. We have those on Earth too. We call them different things. Duty, responsibility, strength. But they're all the same. They're armor we wear to protect ourselves from being hurt. The problem is, if you wear armor long enough, you forget what your own skin feels like. And what would you suggest? Her voice was barely a whisper. Take off the armor. Just for a moment. Just with me. He squeezed her hand. I can't read your mind. I can't sense your emotions. I can't be manipulated or controlled by your power. Whatever you show me, whatever you say to me, it stays between us. I'm probably the safest person in the universe for you to be honest with. Yuna looked at their joined hands. His skin was warm against her cold fingers. Such a small thing. I don't know how, she admitted. I have been Princess Yuna for so long. I don't remember who I was before. Then we'll figure it out together. Do-hyun smiled. That's what friends do. Friends? I know it's presumptuous. A human calling a princess his friend. But I don't really care about titles. His eyes were warm, honest, and completely unafraid. "Do you?" For the first time in 3 centuries, Yuna smiled. Not the practiced smile of a princess. Not the cold smile of a warrior. Just a simple, small, honest smile. "No," she said. "I suppose I don't." They stood together on the balcony, watching the stars, their hands still touching. And somewhere deep inside Yuna, a wall that had stood for centuries began to crack. She did not try to rebuild it. The distress call came at midnight. Station Refuge, a neutral outpost near the edge of Valorian space, was under attack. The Keth Collective had finally made their move. Thousands of beings from dozens of species had gathered there, seeking safety from the growing tensions between the great powers. Now they were trapped, surrounded by Keth warships, with no hope of escape. Do-hyun was in his quarters when the alarms sounded. Within minutes, he was on the bridge of the Silence of Stars, watching the tactical display with growing horror. The Keth were not like other species. They were a hive mind, billions of individual creatures sharing a single consciousness. They did not negotiate. They did not compromise. They simply consumed, absorbing other species into their collective, erasing their identities, turning them into more Keth. "How many people are on that station?" Do-hyun asked. 12,467, a Valorian officer answered. "Mostly refugees, women, children, the weak, and the sick. Then we have to save them." The officer looked at him with contempt. "That is not your decision to make, human." Yuna entered the bridge, her silver armor gleaming. She had changed in the months since they first met. Her eyes were still cold in public, her voice still commanding. But Do-hyun could see the small changes, the way she paused before giving harsh orders, the way she sometimes looked at him for his opinion. "Report," she said. "The Keth have surrounded the station, Princess. 15 warships. Our fleet can destroy them, but not before they breach the station's defenses. We estimate a battle would result in..." "What are our options? We can engage directly and accept the casualties, or we can withdraw and let the Keth take the station. Either way, those people die. There must be another way," Do-hyun said. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him, some with annoyance, some with curiosity. Yuna's expression was unreadable. "Speak," she said. "The Keth are a hive mind, right? That means they share all their thoughts, all their experiences, with each other. They've never encountered a species that could surprise them, because they can read most minds." Do-hyun stepped forward, his mind racing. "But they can't read humans. We're psychically deaf, remember? What are you suggesting?" "Let me talk to them." Silence fell over the bridge. Then someone laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Talk to the Keth?" the officer said. "They don't talk. They consume. You might as well try to negotiate with a fire. Fire spreads because it doesn't think," Do-hyun said. "The Keth do think. They just think differently. But thinking means choosing. And if they can choose, they can be convinced." Yuna studied him for a long moment. "And what would you say to them?" "I don't know yet. But I'd rather try and fail than not try at all." He met her eyes. 12,000 people, Yuna. Children. Families. People who just wanted to be safe. We can't just let them die because fighting is easier than talking. Easier? The word seemed to amuse her. You think war is easier than conversation? For most people, yes. Fighting lets you turn your enemy into a monster, an obstacle, a thing to be destroyed. Talking means seeing them as people. That's much harder. He paused. But it's also the only way to make real peace. The bridge was silent. Every officer, every soldier, every technician was watching this exchange between their princess and the human pet who should never have been allowed to speak. Yuna made her decision. "Open a channel to the Keth fleet," she ordered. "All frequencies. All languages. Princess, this is... That was not a request. The communications officer obeyed. A moment later, the view screen flickered, and Do-hyun found himself looking at the Keth. They were horrible. There was no other word for it. Their ships were organic, grown rather than built, covered in writhing tentacles and pulsing membranes. The creature on the screen, their representative, if a hive mind could have such a thing, was a mass of eyes and mouths and limbs that hurt to look at. "We are Keith," the creature said. Its voice was 1,000 voices speaking as one. "You will be absorbed. Resistance is inefficient." "Hello," Do-hyun said. "My name is Park Do-hyun. I'm a human. You probably haven't met many of us." The Keth paused. In their entire history, no one had ever responded to their declaration with a casual greeting. "We know of humans. Primitive, weak, psychically null. Your species is of no interest. And yet you stopped to listen to me. That's interesting, isn't it?" Do-hyun took a deep breath. "I want to tell you a story. A human story. Will you listen?" Another pause. The hive mind was processing, analyzing, trying to understand this anomaly. "Speak. A long time ago, on my home world, there were two nations that hated each other. They had been at war for generations. Each side had done terrible things to the other. Everyone agreed that peace was impossible. The hatred was too deep, the wounds too old." Do-hyun's voice was calm, steady, carrying across the void of space. But then, something changed. A few people from each side started talking, not about politics or territory or revenge, just talking, sharing stories, learning each other's names. This is irrelevant. Nations are inefficient. The collective is unity, maybe. But here's the thing. Those people who talked, they didn't become the same. They didn't merge into one nation or erase their differences. They just understood each other better. And that understanding grew, slowly, until one day, the wars stopped. Not because one side won, because both sides chose something better. The Keth representative was silent. Behind it, the organic ships seemed to pulse more slowly, as if the entire collective was listening. "You absorb other species because you think that's the only way to understand them," Do-hyun continued. "But what if there's another way? What if you could learn from us without destroying us? What if difference isn't a threat, but a gift? You cannot comprehend the collective. Your minds are too small. Maybe. But I'm trying anyway." Do-hyun smiled. "That's what being human means. We try. We fail. We try again. We reach out across impossible distances and say hello to things we don't understand. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, we find something wonderful on the other side." The Keth did not respond for a long moment. On the tactical display, Do-hyun could see their ships holding position, not attacking, not retreating, just waiting. "Your words are strange," the collective said finally. "Good. That means you're thinking about them. We will. Consider." The transmission ended. The Keth ships remained in place. And then, slowly, impossibly, they began to withdraw. Not all of them. Not completely. But enough. They opened a corridor to the station, allowing Valorian rescue ships to evacuate the refugees. It wasn't peace, not yet. But it was a pause. A chance. When the last transport was safely away, Do-hyun finally let himself breathe. His legs were shaking. His heart was pounding. He had just talked to an alien hive mind and somehow, impossibly, convinced them to spare 12,000 lives. Yuna appeared at his side. Her face was expressionless, but her eyes, those diamond eyes that had terrified a galaxy, were soft. "You could have died," she said quietly. "I know. That was the most foolish thing I have ever seen. I know that too. It was also the most beautiful." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "You saved them, Do-hyun. You saved them with nothing but words." He laughed, a little hysterically. "That's what humans do. We talk too much, and somehow things work out." Around them, the bridge crew was staring. They had just witnessed something they could not explain. A powerless human, facing an enemy that had conquered 1,000 worlds, armed with nothing but a story and a smile. And he had won. The universe would never look at humanity the same way again. Prince Tejo had always hated his sister. It was not personal. He did not hate her as a person, he barely knew her as a person. What he hated was what she represented. The firstborn. The heir. The one who would inherit the throne while he would forever be second. Forever in her shadow. Forever waiting for a future that would never come. The human had given him an opportunity. Tejo had watched his sister change over the past months. He had seen the softness creeping into her eyes, the hesitation before harsh commands, the way she looked at the primitive creature like it mattered. She was growing weak. And weakness, in the Valorian Empire, was unforgivable. He began his plot with care. First, he gathered allies. Generals who resented Yuna's authority. Nobles who whispered that a woman should not lead. Scientists who had been humiliated when their theories about humans proved wrong. One by one, Tejo brought them into his circle, promising each of them what they wanted most. Then he created the evidence. It was easy enough to fabricate. A few altered communications. A hidden transmitter planted in Do-hyun's quarters. Records showing secret contacts between the human and Keth intelligence. By the time Tejo was finished, the evidence was perfect. Irrefutable. Damning. The arrest came at dawn. Do-hyun was taken from his bed by Imperial guards, not Yuna's personal soldiers, but the Emperor's own. They were not gentle. He was dragged through the palace, past courtiers who watched with cold satisfaction, to the Imperial prison beneath the city. Yuna was informed an hour later. Treason? She could not believe what she was hearing. That is absurd. Do-hyun is incapable of treason. The evidence is clear, Princess. The messenger would not meet her eyes. The human has been communicating with the Keth collective, passing information about our military movements. The Emperor himself has reviewed the evidence. The sentence is death. I want to see this evidence. That is, not permitted. The Emperor has declared the matter closed. Yuna's mind raced. Something was wrong. Do-hyun had spent every moment of the past months either with her or under guard. He had no access to military information. He had no means of contacting the Keth. The charges were impossible, but someone had made them possible. She went to her brother. Tejo received her in his private chambers, a satisfied smile on his face. He had always been handsome, in the cold Valorian way. Golden eyes, silver skin, features like carved marble, but there was something rotten beneath the beauty. Something Yuna had always sensed, but never confronted. Sister, he said. What a pleasant surprise. You did this. Did what? Do not play games with me, Tejo. I know you. I know how you think. This has your fingerprints all over it. Tejo's smile widened. Even if that were true, what would you do about it? The evidence is accepted. The sentence is passed. Your pet human will be executed tomorrow at sunrise. There is nothing you can do. Why? Yuna demanded. What does Do-hyun's death gain you? Not his death, sister. Yours. Tejo stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Or rather, the death of who you used to be, the strong princess, the perfect heir, the weapon our father could rely upon. That woman is gone, replaced by someone who holds hands with humans and believes in mercy. Mercy is not weakness. To our people it is. He turned to face her. You have changed, Yuna. Everyone sees it. The generals. The nobles. Father. They whisper that you have grown soft, that the human has corrupted you. When he dies, you will be devastated, and in your devastation, you will make mistakes. Yuna felt ice forming in her chest. You would destroy an innocent man just to hurt me? There are no innocent men. Only useful ones, and useless ones. The human was useful to me as a weapon against you. Now he is useful as a corpse. Teho's smile was poison. Father is old, sister. He will not rule forever. When he falls, I intend to be ready. And you. You will be too broken to stop me. I will expose you. With what? I have covered my tracks perfectly. And even if you somehow found proof, who would believe you? The princess, defending her human pet. They would think you had gone mad with grief. He laughed. Face it, Yuna. You have lost. You lost the moment you let yourself care about something other than power. Yuna left without another word. Her mind was a storm of rage and fear, and something else, something she had learned from a human who smiled in the face of death. Determination. She would find the truth. She would expose her brother. Or she would burn everything down trying. The investigation took her through the night. She called in every favor she had earned in 3 centuries of service. She interrogated guards, examined records, traced communications. Slowly, piece by piece, the truth emerged. Teho had not just framed Do-hyun, he had done something far worse. The altered communications, the false evidence, it was all built on a foundation of real treason. Teho had been in contact with the Keth for months. He had been feeding them information about Valorian defenses, promising them territory in exchange for support when he made his move against the throne. Her brother was not just a schemer, he was a traitor, and the evidence was right there, hidden in the same systems he had used to frame Do-hyun. He had been so confident in his victory that he had grown careless, or perhaps he had simply never imagined that his perfect sister would dig this deep for a human. By dawn, Yuna had everything she needed. She went to the prison first. The guards tried to stop her, but one look from her diamond eyes sent them scrambling aside. She found Do-hyun in a cell deep beneath the city, chained to the wall, bruised from the rough treatment he had received. You came, he said. His voice was weak, but he was smiling, always smiling. Of course I came. She touched his face, gentle, despite her fury. Did you doubt me? Never. Not for a second. I know who did this. My brother. He has been betraying our people to the Keth. I have proof. Do-hyun's eyes widened. Then go. Expose him. Save your empire. I will not leave you here. Yuna. His voice was firm despite his injuries. If you take time to free me, Teho might learn what you know. He might destroy the evidence, or escape. Millions of lives could be at stake. He reached out and touched her hand with his bound fingers. Being human means making hard choices. Sometimes you have to let go of what you want to save what you need. I need you. The words escaped before she could stop them. 3 words that changed everything. 3 words that a Valorian princess should never say to anyone, let alone a human. Do-hyun's smile softened. And I need you to be the person I know you are, the person who saved those refugees. The person who was kind to me when everyone else saw a primitive creature. He squeezed her hand. Go save your people, Yuna. I'll still be here when you're done. She kissed him. It was brief, desperate, and completely against every rule she had ever known. But in that moment, rules did not matter. Only truth mattered. Wait for me, she said. Always. Yuna left the prison and walked toward the throne room. In her hand, she carried the evidence that would destroy her brother, shake the foundations of the empire, and change everything. In her heart, she carried something even more powerful, the courage to do what was right, no matter the cost. That was what being human meant. And thanks to Do-hyun, she finally understood. The throne room was full when Yuna arrived. Every noble in the capital had gathered for what they believed would be Do-hyun's execution. They stood in their finest robes, their silver faces eager for blood. The Emperor sat on his throne of light, his golden eyes watching without expression. And Taeho stood at his side, smiling the smile of a man who had already won. Yuna walked through the crowd, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She wore no armor, carried no weapons. She needed neither. Today, truth would be her sword. Princess Yuna, the Emperor said, you come to witness the execution of your pet? I come to present evidence of treason, father. The crowd murmured. Taeho's smile flickered, just for a moment. The human's guilt has already been established, the Emperor said. I am not speaking of the human. Yuna turned to face her brother. I am speaking of Prince Taeho. All. Silence fell like a hammer. Sister. Taeho's voice was carefully controlled. Your grief has clearly driven you mad. Perhaps you should rest before you embarrass yourself further. I have evidence. Yuna produced a data crystal and held it up for all to see. Communications between Prince Taeho and the Keth Collective. Records of military information sold to our enemies. Plans for a coup that would be supported by a Keth invasion. All of it documented. All of it verified. Lies, Taeho said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Fabrications created to protect your human. Then you will not object to having these records examined by independent investigators. Yuna turned to the crowd. Every noble house has the right to verify evidence in matters of treason. I invoke that right now. Let the truth be examined in the light. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. His golden eyes moved between his two children, the daughter who had always been perfect, and the son who had always been ambitious. Present your evidence, he said. Yuna activated the crystal. Holographic displays filled the throne room, showing message after message, record after record. Taeho's voice, unmistakable, promising the Keth safe passage through Valorian defenses. Taeho's codes, verified by his personal encryption. Taeho's plans, detailed down to the hour of the attack. The evidence was overwhelming. This is impossible, Taeho stammered. Someone has altered these records. The human. It must have been the human. The human has been in chains for a day and under guard for months, Yuna said. He has no access to military systems. He has no knowledge of our encryption. The only person who could have created these communications is you, brother. Because you did create them. You created the Keth Alliance. You created the evidence against Do-hyun. And you created your own downfall by being too arrogant to cover your tracks. Taeho's mask finally cracked. His face twisted with rage, with fear, with the desperation of a cornered animal. You think you've won? He hissed. You think exposing me changes anything? I am not alone. Sister, I have allies. Powerful allies. He raised his hand, and throughout the throne room, nobles and guards reached for hidden weapons. 20, 30, 50 people all loyal to Taeho, all ready to fight and die for his cause. And then the doors burst open. Keth warriors poured into the throne room. Not soldiers in armor, but infiltrators, creatures that had been hiding among the servants, the guards, the common workers of the palace. They had been waiting for Taeho's signal, ready to support his coup. But Taeho had not given the signal. The Keth had acted on their own. Chaos erupted. Valorians fought Keth in every corner of the room. Psychic energy crackled through the air. Bodies fell. The Emperor rose from his throne, his ancient power blazing like a sun. But even he could not be everywhere at once. Yuna fought toward her father, cutting down Keth with blasts of mental energy. She was halfway there when she saw the assassin. It was a Keth commander, larger and stronger than the others, moving through the battle with terrible purpose. Its many eyes were fixed on one target, the Emperor. The Emperor, who was focused on the battle, who did not see the death approaching from behind. Yuna was too far away. She could not reach him in time. She screamed a warning, but her voice was lost in the noise of combat. And then, a figure stepped between the assassin and the Emperor, Do-hyun. He had escaped from prison somehow, or been freed by Yuna's allies. He was unarmed, unarmored, still bruised from his imprisonment. A human standing before a creature that could tear him apart, without effort. "Stop," he said. The Keth assassin paused. Its many eyes focused on this impossible obstacle. "You," it said. "The one who spoke to the collective." "Yes, me." Do-hyun did not move. "You remember what I told you? About understanding? Without destroying? About choices? We remember. Your words created strange patterns in our consciousness. Then make a choice now." Do-hyun's voice was steady, even as blood dripped from a wound in his side where a stray attack had caught him. "You were promised power by Taeho. Number 3. But Taeho lied to everyone. He lied to his family, his people, and he lied to you. If you kill the Emperor today, you don't get an alliance. You get a war that will destroy millions on both sides. We do not fear war. I know you don't. But you don't want it either." Do-hyun took a step closer to the creature. "You're not mindless, like everyone thinks. You think. You calculate. You know that war with the Valorians would cost the collective billions of individual units. Is that worth it? For a dead traitor's broken promises?" The Keth was silent. Around them, the battle continued. But in this small space, time seemed to stand still. "What do you offer instead?" "A chance. A real chance to talk. Not through traitors and lies, but directly. The Valorians will be looking for new allies after this. If the Keth help end this coup instead of supporting it, you prove that you can be trusted. You prove that you're more than the monsters everyone thinks you are." End quote. "You ask us to trust Valorians. I ask you to trust me. A human. Someone who has nothing to gain from lying to you. Someone who is standing in front of you, bleeding, hoping that you're capable of making a choice that doesn't involve killing." The assassin's many eyes blinked. Do-hyun could feel its consciousness reaching out, touching the wider collective, sharing this moment with billions of individual minds. "Your species is strange," the Keth said finally. "You have no power, no weapons, no defenses, and yet you stand before us and ask for mercy. Not mercy, partnership. There's a difference." Another long pause. Then the assassin lowered its killing limbs. "The collective chooses to listen." It turned and raised its voice, or whatever the Keth used instead of voice, to the other Keth in the room. One by one, the infiltrators stopped fighting. They withdrew, grouping together near the door, waiting. The Valorians, confused but not stupid, stopped fighting too. In the sudden silence, Taeho screamed, "No, this is wrong. You were supposed to support me. We had a deal. Deals with liars are void," the Keth collective said. "We have found more interesting partners." Taeho reached for a weapon, but a dozen hands grabbed him before he could move. The remaining nobles, loyal to him, were overwhelmed by those who had stayed true to the Empire. The coup was over. The Emperor, wounded but alive, looked at the human who had saved his life. Do-hyun stood swaying on his feet, barely conscious, blood still dripping from his side. "Why?" the Emperor asked. "Why would you protect me? I sentenced you to death." Do-hyun smiled. It was the same warm, genuine smile he had given Yuna when they first met. "Because she loves you," he said, "and because everyone deserves a chance to choose differently, even emperors." He collapsed. Yuna caught him before he hit the ground. She held him in her arms, her silver tears falling on his face, tears she had not shed in 300 years. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please, stay with me." Around them, the throne room was transformed. Valorians and Keth, ancient enemies, stood together in uncertain peace. The old order had shattered. Something new was being born, and at the center of it all was a human who had changed everything with nothing but words and courage. The universe would never be the same. 1 year had passed, since the day that changed everything. Do-hyun stood on the observation deck of the Grand Conclave Station, watching ships arrive from every corner of the galaxy. It was a different station now, rebuilt, expanded, transformed into a true center of galactic cooperation. And today was a special day. Today, Earth would officially join the Galactic Concord. The ceremony hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Valorians stood beside Keth, their ancient hatred slowly giving way to cautious respect. The Morath had sent their greatest philosophers. The Fenari had come with gifts of art and music. Even species that had never before left their homeworlds had sent observers, curious about the strange events that had reshaped the balance of power. And everywhere Do-hyun went, people whispered about him, the human who talked to the Keth, the man who stopped a war with words, the nobody who looked at a princess and saw a person. Stories had spread across the galaxy, growing larger with each telling. Some said he was a prophet. Others said he was a warrior in disguise. A few insisted he must have secret psychic powers that even he did not know about. The truth, as always, was simpler. He was just a man who refused to be afraid. The wound in his side had healed, leaving a scar that he wore without shame. Valorian medicine was remarkable. It had saved his life when human medicine would have failed. He had spent weeks recovering in the palace, with Yuna visiting every day, watching over him with those diamond eyes that no longer seemed cold. So much had changed in that year. The emperor had retired, passing the throne to Yuna. She was empress now, the first ruler in Valorian history to take power not through strength, but through truth. Her first act had been to pardon Do-hyun and grant him full diplomatic status. Her second act had been to open formal negotiations with the Keth Collective. Those negotiations were still ongoing, trust built slowly between ancient enemies. But for the first time in galactic history, the Keth were talking instead of consuming. They were learning that there were other ways to understand the universe. And humanity. Humanity had changed most of all. Before Do-hyun, humans were seen as primitives, curiosities at best, pests at worst, a species too young and too weak to matter in the great affairs of the galaxy. Now, every power wanted human ambassadors, human advisors, human friends. Not because humans were strong, or smart, or powerful, but because they had something no other species possessed. They had the ability to see others as equals, to connect across impossible differences, to hope. The ceremony began with a speech from the Concord's chairman, an ancient being whose species Do-hyun could not even name. He spoke of unity, cooperation, and the bright future ahead. Standard diplomatic language. Then Empress Yuna took the podium. She had changed too. The cold, perfect princess was gone, replaced by a ruler who led with wisdom instead of fear. Her subjects had resisted. At first, change was always frightening, but slowly, they had begun to see what Do-hyun had seen from the beginning. Beneath the power, beneath the authority, was a person worth following. 1 year ago, she said, her voice carrying across the vast hall, I met a human who did something impossible. He looked at me without fear. He spoke to me without calculation. He saw me not as a goddess or a weapon, but as a person. She paused, her diamond eyes finding Do-hyun in the crowd. I asked him why he dared to look at me. He smiled and said, Only because you're beautiful. At the time, I thought he was mad, or foolish, or both. A small smile crossed her face. I was the fool. I did not understand that he was not speaking of my appearance. He was speaking of something deeper, something I had hidden so well that even I had forgotten it existed. The hall was silent, every being hanging on her words. Humans have no psychic powers. They cannot read minds or sense emotions or influence thoughts. By our standards, they should be weak, insignificant. easy to ignore. Her voice grew stronger. But we were wrong. Humans have a power that none of us understood. They have the power to see. They see past our masks. They see past our titles. They see past our powers and our achievements and our histories. They see us as we truly are, not gods or monsters or tools, but people, just people, trying to find our way through a vast and confusing universe. That power has changed me. It has changed my people. And today, it changes our galaxy. Earth and all humanity. I welcome you to the Galactic Concord. Not as primitives to be tolerated, not as curiosities to be studied, but as equals, as partners, as friends. The applause was thunderous. Do-hyun barely heard it. He was watching Yuna as she stepped down from the podium, walking through the crowd toward him. People parted before her, but she paid them no attention. Her eyes were fixed on him. "You wrote that speech yourself," he said when she reached him. "I did. What did you think?" "I think you've gotten much better at talking about feelings." She laughed. It was still a rare sound from her, but it came more easily now. "I had a good teacher." They walked together to the observation deck, leaving the celebration behind. The stars stretched out before them, countless points of light representing worlds and peoples and possibilities. "Do you remember what you said when we first met?" Yuna asked. "I said you were beautiful. I thought you meant my appearance. I remember." "You were very confused." He smiled at the memory. "You had never met anyone who looked at you and saw something other than power. It was probably very disorienting." "It was." She was quiet for a moment. "When you said I was beautiful, what did you really mean?" Do-hyun turned to face her. A year ago, she would have killed him for what he was about to say. Now, she waited with open eyes and an open heart. "I meant that beneath all the armor, beneath all the fear, beneath all the duty and expectation and loneliness, there was someone worth knowing. Someone kind. Someone who wanted to connect with others but had forgotten how. Someone who needed a friend." He took her hand. "I could see her in your eyes. That first day. She was beautiful. She still is." Yuna's eyes glistened. She had learned to cry that year, another gift from her human friend. "When I took you prisoner, I thought I was studying a curiosity," she said. "An anomaly to be examined and understood. I did not expect." She struggled for words. "I did not expect you to study me instead, to see me when I could not see myself. That's what friends do. Is that what we are? Friends?" Do-hyun squeezed her hand. "I think we're whatever we want to be. That's the beautiful thing about choices. They're ours to make." "Otter," Yuna smiled. It was a real smile, warm and open and full of all the emotions she had spent centuries hiding. "Then I choose you," she said. "Not as a curiosity, not as a symbol, not as a diplomatic achievement, just as you, Do-hyun, the man who looked at me and smiled. And I choose you, Yuna, just Yuna, the woman who was brave enough to let me see her." They stood together, watching the stars. Behind them, the galaxy continued its business alliances forming, treaties being signed, old enemies finding new understanding. The universe was changing, slowly but surely, touched by the ripples of a single moment when a human had looked at a princess and seen something beautiful. Other species would tell this story for centuries. They would wonder at the power of humans, the mystery of their immunity to psychic influence, the strange strength they found in words and connection. Some would try to understand it, some would try to copy it, most would simply marvel at it. But Do-hyun knew the truth. There was no mystery, no secret power, no hidden strength. There was only this: the courage to look at another being and see a person, to reach across the void between souls and say, "I see you, I hear you, you matter." That was what being human meant. And now, thanks to one man and one woman and one impossible moment, the whole galaxy was learning it too. The stars shone on. The future spread out before them, bright and unknown, and full of possibility. And Park Do-hyun, the translator who had changed everything, smiled. Some things, he thought, are worth looking at, only because they're beautiful.